Alright, I'm kind of bored here and I really miss Taiwan. So I'm gonna play a game of screaming death every time I see the number 4. I got this actually at a thrift store in Taiwan. I don't think they give these cards out on the plane anymore. But unfortunately, Taiwan still has a mandatory 14-day quarantine when you arrive, which would make the whole trip kind of pointless because that would chew up all of my vacation time. And, anyways. Fuck death! Yeah, so I first learned about the concept of 4 being death because many years ago, when I was in elementary school, we had just gotten connected to the internet, and I downloaded a pinball game. It was written in Pascal, if I remember correctly, and in order to launch the ball, you press the down button a certain number of times, and then you press the space bar. And it was very deterministic. The number of times you pressed the down kind of determined where the ball would go. And I discovered that if you press the down button 4 times, the ball would go into this weird pattern and it would fall down the drain before scoring any points. And I thought that was kind of weird, and I told my dad about it, and he said, well, because 4 is death. We were speaking in Chinese. He said, because 4 is death. And I thought he had made that up on the spot. And I was going to a Chinese school at the time. And so the following Sunday, it was every Sunday, the following Sunday, I asked my Chinese school teacher if that was true, if the number 4 really is unlucky because it sounds like death. But she didn't want to talk about it, obviously, because there was a classroom full of elementary school kids. She didn't want to be talking about death around all of them. But she gave the expression that, yeah, it's true. She just doesn't want to talk about it in the classroom. And so it became a funny joke that 4 is death. And I generally try to avoid using the number 4 when I'm giving a presentation about my technical work. Unfortunately, this year I give a presentation about the game of backgammon, and unfortunately in backgammon the number 4 is pretty common because of the doubling cube. Usually you score 2 points because the game is doubled and then you score a gammon, but in theory it's possible to also double up to 4. And 4 is very prominent in one of the neural networks that I'm using because you're trying to predict the probability of each player scoring a number of points. And because you can double theoretically up to infinity, I cut off the probabilities at 4. It's very rare for somebody to win more than 4 points in a round, so I cut off the neural network at 4. It's just a heuristic, but unfortunately it makes 4 a very prominent feature of my paper. I generally try to avoid using 4 in any of my examples, just because of how unlucky it is. I remember when I was writing my PhD thesis, I went out of my way to avoid using a number 4 in there, and it drove my advisor crazy because we were talking about various examples. Oh, we can't use that because it results in a number 4. And I spent a lot of time trying to avoid the number 4. And unfortunately, when we were printing it out in the publication, it began on page number, I believe it was 442 or something like that. So a lot of 4s in there. It was unfortunate, but it's just the luck of the draw. All that effort to avoid using 4, and it came up as 4. But I've been very lucky ever since avoiding the number 4 in my work. Actually, a few years ago, I was working at a tutoring center, and one of the other instructors had come over to my table to give this example, and I could tell she was really struggling to come up with the example. And when she was done, she came over to gesture at me and said, see, it's all because of you. I can't use the number 4. But I really admire how much effort she put to avoid using the number 4. For me, it comes very fluently because I've been doing this since I was like 8 years old, so. Death! Death! As a joke one time, I was flying in I think this was Tokyo, and the agent at the gate asked me if I had any seat preferences, and I said as long as the seat doesn't have any fours in it. And I was surprised she was able to accommodate. She must have heard that many times, just by the way that how fluently she was accommodating that request, because it's in Japan, right? In the U.S., such a request would probably be looked at as very weird, right? I got to try it sometime in the U.S. But what I really love about seat preferences is that when I travel, see, in the U.S., we don't like to think outside the box, right? If you go up to the gate agent and you tell... See, one of my favorite things to do in terms of seat preferences is I'll mention I'm still single, and if you could sit me next to somebody else who's also flying alone, I'm still looking for my future spouse. In the U.S., it's fuck off, right? Nobody's going to entertain that idea, right? But when I travel to Europe or Asia, or even Canada, right? If I'm flying from Vancouver to Toronto on Air Canada, such a request doesn't seem so awkward, right? If I'm flying from Seattle to Chicago or to LA, forget about it, right? They're going to kick you off. They're going to think you're trying to you're a terrorist of some sort, right? You're trying to recruit another terrorist on the plate, right? I wish Americans would think a little bit outside the box. I think that's part of the reason why COVID has been such a challenge. Anytime somebody has to do something new, like put on a mask or to sit 6 feet away, they just think it's too much, right? They don't like to think. We just like to follow the line, and that's all, right?